Welcome to Prelims Haste program of IAS by Heart, your one-stop solution to crack prelims. I am Vijay Kumar. We are going to discuss ancient, medieval and modern history of India, with more weightage given to modern history of India. In our class 2, we are going to discuss questions 11 to 20. For the first 10 questions, kindly visit the class 1 video. Let's move on to the questions. 11th question is, consider the following statement regarding the Nalanda University. Options are, Nalanda University was founded by Harshavardhana. Huansang visited Nalanda University. So, answer to this question is 2 only, B. Because Nalanda University was founded 2 centuries prior to Harshavardhana. Let's see the further explanation. So, Nalanda University was founded by Kumaragupta I of Gupta dynasty. Kumaragupta ruled between 415 to 455 CE. Kumaragupta I was also called as Mahendraditya. Kumaragupta I was the son of Chandragupta II, and Chandragupta II was famously called as Vikramaditya. And we have to note that Nalanda is located southeast to the city of Patna and northeast to the Gaya. So, Nalanda is in the state of Bihar in India. And the professors of this university were called the Panditas. Their profound knowledge attracted scholars from distinct regions like China, Korea, Japan, Tibet, Mongolia, Turkey, Sri Lanka and other Southeast Asia. This is the Nalanda University campus today. And Nalanda University was a Mahayana university. However, various religious subjects like Vedas, Shankyas, Hinayana and Yoga philosophies were also taught here. Mahayana is a sect of Buddhism, and Mahayana means great vehicle and Hinayana means lesser vehicle. So, like other sects of Buddhism, the Mahayana is also started from the India. And from the 9th century, it became a dominant influence of the Buddhist culture of Central and East Asia, which it remains even today. And Mahayana along with Theravada Buddhism focus on the teachings of Buddha. And they emphasize on individual search for the liberation from the suffering of the cycle called samsara, which is the cycle of birth, death and rebirth. So to liberate from the cycle of suffering, one has to individually search for the liberation and one has to search for the enlightenment. Let's move on. And Harshavardhana in 7th century CE patronized university during his reign. And Huansang visited Nalanda University during the period of Harshavardhana. So Huansang stayed in India for almost 14 years between 631 to 644 CE. His book is called Siyuchi, which describes about the places he visited. So, Huansang was a Chinese traveler and he entered in India. In India, he visited places from Gujarat to Assam and in south up to Tamil Nadu. In Tamil Nadu, he reached up to Kanchipuram. And some of the places he visited are Mathura, Kanauj, Ayodhya, Bodh Gaya and Nalanda. So, answer to this question is Huansang visited Nalanda University only. And Nalanda University is founded by, you know that it was Kumaragupta I of Gupta dynasty. Let's move on to the next question. 12th question is, consider the following statements. Mahendravarma I was called as Chitrakarapuli and Narasimhavarma I was called as Vichitra Chitta. So, answer to this question is A1 only. So, it was Mahendravarma I who was also called as Vichitra Chitta and Narasimhavarma I was called as Mamalla. Let's see the explanation. So, Mahendravarma I was a Pallava king. He ruled between 600 to 630 CE. He was called as Chitrakarapuli due to his painting skills. Chitrakara Puli means tiger among painters. So Mahendravarma I was also called as Chetakari, which means builder of temples. He also called as Gunabara, Satyasandha and Mattavilasa. He was also hailed as the Vichitra Chitta because he constructed a temple for Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva without the use of brick, timber, metal or mortar. This was mentioned in Mandagapattu inscription. So this Mandagapattu temple, which is in Viluppuram district of Tamil Nadu, is hailed as the first cave temple in Tamil Nadu. Let's move on. And Narasimhavarma I was the son of Mahendravarma I. Narasimhavarma I ruled between 630 to 668 CE. So Narasimhavarma I was called as Mamallan, which means great wrestler. He avenged the Pallava defeat by capturing Vatapi in the year 642 CE. So he defeated Pulikeshin II of Chalukya dynasty, and thus Narasimhavarma I was also called as Vatapi Gonda. Mahabalipuram is also called as Mamallapuram after his name. Okay, and during his period, Chinese traveler Huan visited Kanchipuram. So you have to note here that Huan, Narasimhavarma I, Pulikeshin II of Chalukya and Harshavardhana were contemporaries. So answer to this question is one only. That is Mahendravarma I was called as Chitrakara Puli and he was also called as Vichitra Chitta. And Narasimhavarma I was called as Mamallan. Let's move on to the next question. 13th question is, consider the following statement regarding the paintings during the Mughal Empire. Options are, Persian influence in the Mughal painting started from the period of Jahangir. Akbar established departments and workshops for the development of art of painting. Regional school of paintings were developed during the times of Aurangzeb. So, answer to this question is B, that is 2 and 3 only. Because the Persian influence in the Mughal painting started from the period of Humayun and not during the period of Jahangir. Let's see the explanation. So, Persian influence in the Mughal painting started from the period of Humayun. So, please note that Humayun is the father of Akbar and Jahangir is the son of Akbar. Don't confuse between the two. So, Humayun brought two painters from Persia. They are Abdur Samad and Mir Sayyid Ali. So they led to the Persian influence in the Mughal painting. So this painting is an example of Abdur Samad's painting and this is the self-portrait of Mir Sayyid Ali. And it was the Akbar who established departments and workshops for the development of art of painting and he regularly gave awards to the paintings. So during the period of Akbar, Indian influence of paintings in the Mughal painting started. The workshops of Fatehpur Sikri are called as Karkhanas, where he regularly patronaged and awarded painters. And Mughal paintings reached its zenith under Jahangir. So much like his father, Jahangir too had an inclination towards arts, which proved beneficial for the growth of Mughal arts, especially the painting. So European influence started from the period of Jahangir. So since Jahangir is the lover of nature, his paintings are usually found with flora and fauna. So in the period of Shah Jahan, the aesthetics of Mughal painting were retained. And in the period of Aurangzeb, art of painting declined. Since Aurangzeb discouraged art of painting, this led to the development of regional school of paintings. Since there was no support from the monarch, artisans themselves developed the regional schools of paintings. So these two types of regional paintings are Rajasthani paintings and Pahari paintings. So Rajasthani paintings had influence of Rajputs and it developed in the regions of Western India surrounding the Rajasthan, and Pahari paintings developed in the regions of Jammu and Himachal Pradesh. So this is an example of Pahari painting and this is an example of Rajasthani painting. So answer to this question is B, 2 and 3 only. So please note here, Persian influence of Mughal painting started from the period of Humayun, Indian influence started from the period of Akbar, and European influence started from the period of Jahangir. Let's move on to the next question. 14th question is, consider the following statements. The scholar Al-Biruni accompanied Muhammad of Ghor during his invasion. Al-Biruni dedicated his work Al-Qunan Al-Masudi to Muhammad of Ghor. Choose the correct option. So answer to this question is B, neither 1 and 2. Let's see the explanation. So the scholar Al-Biruni accompanied Muhammad of Ghazni and not Muhammad of Ghor during his invasion. So Muhammad of Ghazni invaded 17 times in India between 1001 to 1024 according to NCERT. And Al-Biruni dedicated his work Al-Qunan Al-Masudi to Muhammad of Ghazni only. And Al-Qunan Al-Masudi was a detailed scientific work in which he speaks about algebraic concepts and solar movements. In this book, he had references of Greek scholar Ptolemy and his work Almagest. So Al-Biruni was a mathematician, astronomer, historian and geographer. So answer to this question is neither 1 and 2. Let's move on to the next question. 15th question is, consider the following statements. Akbar introduced coin called Rupaya in India. So Rupaya is a type of gold coin of Akbar. Choose the incorrect option. So the answer to this question is C, both 1 and 2. Since both these options are incorrect, we have to choose C. Let's see the explanation. So it was Sher Shah Suri who introduced 3 different coins using 3 different metals. So the gold coin was called as Mohur, and it was the silver coin which is called as Rupiah, and copper coin of Sher Shah is called as Dam. Okay. So these are the images of coins of Sher Shah. So this is the gold coin of Sher Shah which is Mohur, and this is the silver coin of Sher Shah which is called as Rupiah, and the copper coin was called as Dam. And when Humayun took over Sher Shah Suri, he retained the coinage system introduced by the Sher Shah Suri. All of these coins were continued by Humayun, Akbar and other following Mughal emperors. So with respect to Akbar, like his ideology, coins of Akbar also reflected secularism. The Hindu symbols of swastika along with Kalima, which is a Islamic affiliation of faith, reflected in the coins of Akbar. So in the gold coins, mohurs of Akbar, the depictions of Rama and Sita were present, and in the silver coins of Akbar, Rama and Gobind also were present. So please note this feature of coin of Akbar. So it was Sher Shah who introduced the coin of Rupiah, which is a silver coin in India. So let's move on to the next question. 16th question is, consider the following statement. Options are, Rowlatt Satyagraha was called as Himalayan blunder by Gandhiji. Jallianwala Bagh massacre happened on the backdrop of Rowlatt Satyagraha. Choose the correct option. So answer to this question is C, both 1 and 2. Let's see the explanation. So it was the period where violent movements were on the rise, and there was growth of organizations like Anushilan Samiti. So British tried to pass the Rowlatt Act. Its important motive was to allow British to jail any protesters without the trial for 2 years. This also suspended habeas corpus. And Gandhiji started Rowlatt Satyagraha in response to Rowlatt Act. He called Rowlatt Satyagraha as the Himalayan blunder. So let's see the background. When Gandhiji started Satyagraha in 6th April 1919 against Rowlatt Satyagraha of 1919, he and other leaders were soon arrested. When the local leaders were arrested in Punjab, the people of Punjab gathered in Jallianwala Bagh to protest in peace against the arrest of their leaders. And General Dyer fired on them and it led to the one of the worst massacre in the history. So, following the Jallianwala Bagh tragedy, the people of India protested violently against the government of British. Many government buildings were burnt. So, Gandhiji called Rowlatt Satyagraha as a Himalayan blender because he thought that he started the movement prematurely. That is, before instilling the importance of non-violence and the dangers of violence to the people. So, let's move on to the next question. 17th question is, match the following. This question is about the personalities and what they are famous for. The personalities given here are Dalhousie, Wellesley, Robert Clive and Francisco de Almeida. And their titles and their policies given here are Blue Water Policy, Hero of Orchard, Subsidiary Alliance and Doctrine of Lapse. So, answer to this question is D. Let's see the explanation. So, Francisco de Almeida followed Blue Water Policy. So, Francisco de Almeida was the first viceroy of Portuguese possession in India between the years 1505 to 1509. So, his policy was Blue Water Policy. Through this policy, he believed that if a power controls the seas around India, it can control the economy and trade of India, and thus it can control the India. And Robert Clive was called as Hero of Orchard. He acted as Governor General between 1765 to 1772. He was called as Hero of Orchard because he played an important role in Second Carnatic War and led to the capture of the Arcot, which is the capital of Carnatic Kingdom in South India. So he was called as Hero of Arcot. And Wellesley introduced Subsidiary Alliance. So Subsidiary Alliance was a imperialist policy to take over the control of Indian kingdoms. So according to the terms of this alliance, Indian rulers were not allowed to have their independent forces. They were to be protected by the company only, and they had to pay for the subsidiary forces. And when they failed to pay, they had to give their part of land and their territory to the British East India Company. So their victims were Nawab of Oudh, Hyderabad and later Tanjavur and Mysore kingdoms. Let's move on. And Dalhousie was a Governor General between 1848 to 56. He followed the policy of Doctrine of Lapse. It was another imperialist policy to annex Indian kingdom. It states that if a king has no natural heir, then the kingdom would be taken over by the British. Okay. So, answer to this question is D. That is Dalhousie, Doctrine of Lapse. For Wellesley, Subsidiary Alliance. For Robert Clive, who was called as Hero of Orchard, and Francisco de Almeida followed the policy of Blue Water Policy. Let's move on to the next question. 18th question is, consider the following statement. The first modern census in India during the British period was conducted in the year 1881. Viceroy during the first modern census in India was Lord Mayo. Choose the correct option. So, answer to this question is B, that is 2 only. Let's see the explanation. So, the first modern sample census was conducted in the year 1872 and the Viceroy during the period was Lord Mayo. So, the first ever census, the first ever modern census conducted in the year 1872. However, the regular census started from 1881. The 1881 census is the first synchronous census throughout India taken during the British rule. And the Indian Viceroy during that time was Lord Ripon. And the Census Commissioner of India was Plowden. This question is very important because the following year, that is 2021, is the census year for the previous decade. So UPSC might ask question from the history of census in India. Let's move on to the next question. 19th question is, Quit India movement took place under the leadership of, options are Jawaharlal Nehru, Gandhiji, Vallabhbhai Patel, none of the above. So answer to this question is none of the above. Let's see the explanation. So in Bombay session of Indian National Congress in 1942, a resolution was passed to start the Quit India movement, and Gandhiji gave the slogan "Do or Die." The important reason was the unsatisfactory provisions of Cripps Mission of 1942. So Quit India movement started in 8th August 1942. By 9th August 1942, most of the leaders were arrested by the British. Thus, the movement became leaderless and violent, and this movement was also called as leaderless movement or violent August movement. And Gandhiji defended the Indians, stating that leonine violence of British causing the Indians to do violence. So answer to this question is none of the above. That is, Quit India movement was a leaderless movement. Let's move on to the next question. 20th question is, consider the following provisions of Cripps Mission of 1942. Options are: independence for the Indians with some restrictions was promised after the World War II. Provisions for constitution making body after the war, where all its members were to be elected. So the first option states that independence with some restrictions was a provision of Cripps Mission, and members of constitution making body were to be elected. So answer to this question is neither 1 and 2. Let's see the explanation. So the main aim of Cripps Mission was to make Indians to participate in the World War II on behalf of the Britain, and also to decide on the India's future. So Cripps Mission was headed by a British senior minister called Stanford Cripps. The features of the Cripps Mission were: it promised for a dominion status after the war and not the independence. So this was opposed by Indians and the Congress, since the Lahore session of INC in 1929 itself demanded for the complete independence. So this provision was unsatisfactory for the Indians. Second, Cripps Mission promised for a constitution making body after the war, where the members of province were to be elected and the members of princely states were to be nominated. So all of its members are not to be elected, some are to be nominated. That is, the members of princely states were to be nominated. The third provision is, the provinces that are not ready to accept new constitution would have the right to separate agreement with the British. So all these three provisions were not accepted by the Indians and the Congress. This forced the Indians and the Congress to start the Quit India movement. So answer to this question is neither 1 and 2. So with this we conclude our session. Thank you.